All right, good morning, everybody. Let's turn up the light a little bit. Good morning. Happy February 23rd, 2023. If you give me a second, I'm going to go ahead and also share this to Instagram. I always throw this on the Instagram story. But if you make your way here automatically, claps and snaps to you. You're getting things done, on your own. I appreciate it. But let me go ahead and until this transition from Instagram to YouTube becomes a little bit more, official, a little bit more ingrained, in how we're moving. I want to make sure everybody has access. So I'm going to go ahead and share this to the Instagram story. We kicked off last night with the first night of the challenge, which was absolutely amazing. Super, super pumped to get to night two. We covered a lot of great pieces of information, but also strategies to implement immediately when it comes to like high probability trades, right? Entering high probability trades, not overcomplicating things, not having to change the world in one night, but really just recognizing, okay, here's a time for you to enter something that is high probability. You don't have to worry about, necessarily the best spot to take profit. You're going to get guaranteed this much profit out of this, and just executing. So I'm super, super excited for what we have planned for tonight as well. Let me go to my Instagram story and drop this on the story, just the link to get here. I want to make sure that everybody, can find out where we are. Drop a 5 if you were there for the challenge last night. You enjoyed what we had to go over. I made sure to include content that really could meet everybody where they were at, whether you had, 10 years or 10 minutes of experience or 0 minutes of experience. You got some value out of it. So super proud of what we covered yesterday, the environment that we had, right? One of productivity moving forward and closing the gap. And looking to maintain that, right? That's really all you can do. Let's see here. All right, gonna throw that out here live now for the PMR at the link below. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get that link in there, and then we will be ready to go. I need to take my allergy medicine this morning. I was in a rush and didn't take my allergy medicine, and now I can feel the spring weather creeping up on me. All right, cool. There we go. On the story, and we're ready to go. So we're home free, guys. I was just posting this stream on the story to make sure everybody can access us. Let's get this camera focused. For some reason, when I do that, it focuses. I don't know why. If I throw up the double peace sign, maybe the camera, just like us, needs to get centered, right? Maybe you need to get centered and find its inner peace. But every time I do that, it focuses in. I don't know why, but I won't question it. We'll roll with it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the news that we have here available today. I'm super excited, really just to get to tonight. I'm trying to get back to that challenge atmosphere, to that teaching atmosphere, to that atmosphere where everybody there is for the same goal, the same, the same ambitions, and that's really all that's on my mind at this point. So I'll try and stay focused with the pre-market rundowns, but I'm in full market blueprint challenge mode here. In terms of our first headline, we're talking about the future of online speech. Right, so the future of online speech, as mentioned previously, Wednesday on the Wall Street Breakfast, there is a big battle taking place at the Supreme Court this week that could reshape the future of the internet. So, at issue are the legal rules that govern harmful online content and who is responsible for publishing and dissemination. Right, so who's responsible for publishing this harmful online content and then dispersing it across the internet. Being heard is a case known as Gonzalez versus Google, which centers around extremist clips on YouTube as well as Twitter versus Tamne, which also surrounds terrorist posts and algorithm recommendations. So, in terms of a backdrop, pivotal to the discussion in the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was established in the early days of the internet in 1996, it provides a legal shield that protects tech companies from liability for their users' posts on their website by classifying them as platforms rather than publishers. Classic smart use of words and whatnot to kind of circumvent culpability and accountability. I do the same thing. If you have something that's open for everyone, you don't want whatever they do in there being traced back to you or you being held liable in any way. Let's see here. It also allows social media companies to moderate posts they deem to be obscene, lewd, excessively violent, harassing, etc., as long as they are acting in good faith. Now, any changes in terms of quotes here, any changes to the current status quo can be detrimental to Google, and investors should be aware of the impending potential risk, right? Seeking Alpha contributor SL Investments. The article also explores possible changes to Section 230, consequences for advertising revenue, and historical party view of Democrats and Republicans on the matter. Even if reforms or reinterpretations do take place, platforms may not be impacted equally, as can be seen in the comments section. Now, in terms of outlook, while any rulings could take months, Supreme Court justices have so far voiced hesitation in upending current protections, especially if there would be far reaching consequences that would be hard to predict. However, they are exploring whether there should be a legal liability distinction between hosting versus promoting user content, and whether the company should be held or could be held responsible for aiding and abetting under the Anti-Terrorism Act. Wow, that would be kind of crazy if that was the case, if they could be charged like that. But maybe it helps curb some of the stuff that's falling through the cracks here online. The online speech dispute could also be kicked over to Congress if they feel that it's up to lawmakers on Capitol Hill to set the scope of the law enshrined in Section 230. I do think particularly this is an area where AI can help. It is very hard to be a content moderator on Facebook, on Google, all these different places. They have some stuff that is automatically sectioned off. But if you were able to relegate this to a machine instead of a human, I think it would like really, really help, because it takes a toll, right? If you're sitting there and your job is literally watching like horrible, horrible things online to filter it out. Those people have PTSD, right? I've read a number of articles on this. They have counseling available for them, but like there's some stuff when you see, you just can't unsee. So I think that this is especially one of those areas where, you bring AI, it's not very tough to kind of, decide, okay, this is a video of murder and then this is a video of a cat, right? I'm pretty sure it can parse through it if it can give me a, weekly workout for my exact size, ethnicity, right? In physical goals, right? I'm sure that you could get this artificial intelligence or any AI to go through and parse through this information. But I think that's an easy fix for this. And Google, I don't know if Bard is the answer for that, because apparently Bard was having some issues of its own. But if Google could do that, I think that that's something that would make a big difference for it. So that's really what I would be saying if I was standing there in court and I was Google. But we do have just another day in the life. Again, I don't think that this is something where go buy puts on Google. I think this is something where you always have big tech companies that are in court, right? They're always standing trial for something, and the case is no different here. With Google. And yes, good morning, everybody. Hope you had an amazing night's sleep and a great morning thus far. Again, whether you're watching live or via replay, make sure you throw those ones in the chat signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of this session. And, if you missed it, that's the morning spiel. We're about to get back into, these headlines that we have going here. So other than Google being in court, we've got diabetes disruption. So tech giant Apple has achieved major breakthroughs in a secret project to develop a continuous blood glucose monitoring system, according to Bloomberg. The moonshot-style project, known as E5, dates back to the Steve Jobs era. And if the company can hit its ultimate goal of incorporating it into the Apple Watch, the device will become a must-have for millions of people. About 1 in 10 Americans are diabetics, who usually rely on a finger prick test or newer continuous glucose monitoring, in parentheses CGM, devices to make their to measure their blood glucose level. However, CGM devices marketed by the likes of Dexcom, ticker DXCM, Abbott, ticker ABT, and Senseonics Holdings, ticker SENS, require periodic replacements, sometimes even as early as 2 weeks. So this is just big tech is always going to be hungry for the healthcare sector. Why? Because that is where the most data possible is, right? You're talking about Apple knowing everything about you already because they can monitor, how you're moving. They say that, they won't track you across platforms, but at least the third-party apps don't. Doesn't mean that they don't. If Apple already knows everything about you in terms of your social habits and how you interact with the world, they know everything about you outwardly. If they get involved with you healthcare, they'll know everything about you inwardly as well, right? So that's really what this is. Although, it is pushed and it is kind of repackaged and it is phrased as, hey, we're looking to help the world. Big tech is looking to help itself. And if it can help the world in the process, awesome. If it doesn't, I don't think it really cares. And that's why big tech has always been trying to get into healthcare, right? Facebook, Google, all of them, right? Apple, Amazon. Amazon is already in healthcare. They're trying to go deeper. You have all these different tech companies that are trying to weasel their way in. Why? Because number one, there's so much money in healthcare, which is sad but true. And then number two, there's so much data, and we know that data is power. Imagine if Apple is literally monitoring your blood all the time. Like they know how you act outside and they know how you behave inside. They literally know everything about you, right? So it's one of those scary things, but also, I mean, if it can help people, cool. But it's that tough balancing act of give and take where it's like you're dealing with, an entity that it's just that it's an entity, right? That has its own goals, has its own motivations. So I'm not, trying to be a conspiracy theorists or anything here. Just being realistic and basically making sure that everybody is aware of that fact that big tech, like that is the golden goose for them getting into healthcare, and any foothold they can get into it, they absolutely relish it. But this could be something that affects Apple, long term if they do end up being a big player in the healthcare hardware space. That would be pretty crazy, right? If you could kind of hit two birds with one stone, you have all the capabilities of your Apple Watch, but also it monitors your blood glucose level continuously. It's pretty nice, right? And pretty convenient. I'm not gonna lie, if I was diabetic, I would probably do it. So one of those things to keep an eye on is Apple has been really, really making its debut in the fintech space, right? With Apple Pay and the Apple Card, and they're going heavy in the fintech space. But now you see them also, kind of making pushes into healthcare, and specifically healthcare hardware. So that came out of nowhere, but I think was a very, very important headline here to just kind of let us know, okay, what are these big techs up to? What are their plans? And I'm sure we'll get more information on that. In terms of deepening ties, this is something that I've been discussing here in the pre-market rundowns, but the ties between China and Russia, right, stronger than ever at this point. Chinese-Russian trade has soared since the invasion of Ukraine, with Beijing becoming Moscow's largest buyer of oil, a key source of Kremlin revenue, of course, and most of Russia's auto and cell phone imports coming from the east as it replaces Western suppliers. The two even hailed their ties at a high-profile meeting between Vladimir Putin and China's top diplomat Wang Yi, describing their relationship as solid as a mountain, and building a no-limits partnership proclaimed at the 2022 Beijing Olympics. So, in terms of quotes, we are concerned. U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price responded at a press briefing. Yeah, I would be too. We've not yet seen the PRC provide Russia with lethal aid, but we don't believe they've taken it off the table either. Over in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that China allying itself with Russia would mean World War III. Let's hope he's not right. And that's the big thing, is that at this point we are already at war with Russia, right? It's just a proxy war, meaning that, it's like if my cousin is fighting you and I'm giving my cousin weapons to fight you, we're fighting each other, right? I'm just not the person holding them, but I'm giving them the means to fight you, right? In court, it would be tried as aiding, right? You're aiding and abetting. So we're involved in conflict with Russia. If China then decides to start giving weapons to Russia, then at this point, like where are we? Like it kind of is World War III, right? You've just got a proxy war going on between the US and China, and then Russia and Ukraine, right? Ukraine being the breadbasket of Europe, and Russia being a heavy oil producer, right? And really having a chokehold, on the energy market. And then China being the big manufacturer that it is. Of course, a lot of that is leaving China. It's not the manufacturing hub it once was, and it's struggling itself economically, but make no mistake, it can still do some damage. So if China really decides to back Russia and start sending, the defense technology and all that stuff to Russia, I don't see how that doesn't end up escalating. That just ends up being a multi-year conflict, which just sees Ukraine pretty much decimated. So, knock on wood, literally praying that is not the case. But it's just right now with Russia and China, thicker than thieves. It's not something that can be counted out, right? So while we don't want to be pessimists or speak negativity into existence, you also cannot be naive, right? You can't be naive. There are tons of people who said, I'm going to believe that there isn't a recession. That's cool. You can believe that, but when the recession comes, what are you going to do? Right? Faith without works is dead. You want to make sure that you're putting in the works, because, to get, to kind of branch into faith here. The Lord can promise you something, promise you a destiny, but nothing is promised without adversity, right? Literally every amazing story in the Bible, they had to go through adversity, right? Even to see Jesus being born, they had to trek weeks and weeks and weeks with no direction other than a star, right? They had no idea of what was going on, right? Joseph had to deal with his wife being pregnant and he didn't know how. Right. So just because there's a blessing that's promised for you does not mean that there's no adversity that you have to work through in order to get to that. Right. Blessing does not mean lack of adversity. It means triumph in the face of adversity. Right. So I think that, while we hope that this does not happen, wars have happened in the past. It's not going to be the be all end all, but you've got to make sure that you're doing the works in order to, kind of make sure that you're still putting food on the table, right? You're still protecting those that you love, et cetera, right? So it comes to us. The works come to us. In terms of today's markets, we got data, that came out. We got initial jobless claims at 8:30 a.m. And then we also got, I believe, something else that we get. Yeah, GDP Q4 numbers as well. I don't know if those were preliminary numbers or the final numbers, but because of that, we might be changed right from where we were when markets opened. So, in terms of like market open numbers, I know that we have bounced a bit. I'm not sure if we are still in that same spot. Like I said, I can't have both the trading platform up as well as be streaming here in this beautiful 4K. Let me make sure this camera is focused. Don't know if we could refocus it in. I don't know if it was blurry, but whenever I give it the double piece, it like for some reason focuses in. Speaking of focusing in, let's get this news up. Not here, not in announcements. Where is it? There we go. Okay. So US Q4 preliminary GDP up 2.7%. The advance, or I guess what was expected, was 2.9%. So that is probably bearish, right? In terms of GDP, that is kind of like what are we producing, right? In terms of the country, right? How much are we producing? Kind of what is that looking like? When we talk about results and what value are we bringing to the world? We expected, the overall productivity, right, which GDP kind of measures is just gross domestic product. So what are we producing, right? What value are we bringing to the world? Looks like that was expected to be 2.9%, and it was only up 2.7%. So that's a little bit less than expected. And in terms of U.S. jobless claims, they're down 3K to 192K. We expected 197K. So that is, not good. That's not good because at the end of the day, you want the labor market to, unfortunately, right, for normal people, you want the labor market to show cracks and to be weak because the Fed has two jobs: maintaining full employment and keeping the target interest rate low. If the Fed doesn't have to worry about employment, then they can worry about interest rates and they can just continue to hike and not worry about, taking any pauses, just like they did yesterday, right? We hiked again. So in terms of like both of those pieces of data, are bearish. And I wouldn't doubt if we had paired all the gains, paired meaning offset. I wouldn't doubt if we had offset all the gains that we came into today with, given that data, right? So we get data this morning. We get data again tomorrow. So we get data Thursday and Friday. I talked about this on Monday, right? In the week ahead, we get data, all this week in the second half of the week. So anything that you swing is going to be subject to that data. But overall, it's looking like the at least initial reactions would be bearish, for preliminary GDP numbers as well as for this jobless claims data that we got. It looks like in terms of preliminary PCE price index, we get PCE tomorrow. I believe we get the full, but I think the preliminary count, right, that they dropped, it looks like we had PCE increasing by 3.7%. And what we expected was 3.2. So that's not good either, right? And we have core PCE price index up 4.3% versus 3.9% expected. So literally none of the things that came out today were bullish. So you want to make sure that you're understanding all that, internalizing all that, and making sure that that is laying the groundwork, right? The backstory, the exposition for how you approach markets today, right? The things, the data, the pieces of data that we got here aren't bullish coming into today. And again, that can speak to the PCE numbers that we get tomorrow. Once we get the full PCE, we got the preliminary PCE data in. You can do a nice Google search and see if that usually matches up with the full PCE data. I want you to, do that research yourself, because there was times when, we researched, okay, PCE versus CPI. Do they normally go hand in hand? Yes, but not always, right? It could be the same thing here. So I don't want people to think, oh, because of this, PCE will definitely be bad tomorrow. But, if somebody says, hey, my teacher says I'll probably get around a D in this class, that's not good, right? The final grades haven't come out yet, but you want at least the forecast to look good, right? You if you're pleasantly surprised, awesome, but it's not good when the forecast isn't looking good, right? So that's those are the major data pieces, and again, we get that full PCE data tomorrow. But other than that, those look like the major things that are happening today. I remember the Fed boss that he's speaking at 10:50, but again, unless it is what's his name, Bullard or Powell, not really holding as much weight. Again, knock on wood, but not really holding as much weight in terms of what else is happening. Our rapid fire bullet point rundown. That's how we'll close things out here. Who will likely replace Lyle Brainerd as Fed vice chair? Intel cuts dividend as Nvidia churns out the chips. Meta is reportedly weighing thousands of more job cuts. So again, continuous job cuts here. Revenue numbers from pandemic favorite Etsy come in hot. Morgan Stanley gives big boost to global oil demand outlook. Space services provider Intuitive Machines, ticker LUNR for Lunar, is blasting off. EV maker Lucid, ticker LCID, on the move after Q4 deliveries fall short. So it sounds like Lucid is falling after they fell short for their earnings report. Tesla announces global engineering HQ in Palo Alto. Lending shakeup. Wells Fargo set to lay off mortgage bankers. In the Moderna, ticker mRNA, vaccine future in focus with pandemic at a transition point. Just absolutely sideswiped the mouse out of the way. I'm sorry, mouse. But overall, that'll wrap us up here for our pre-market rundown, for February 23rd, 2023. I don't know what else to say to wrap us up other than I'm super excited for day 2 of the challenge. Day 1 was bonkers. It was amazing. We brought the vibes, we brought the energy, and of course, we brought the value. And I'm looking to continue that. So that's pretty much, all that there is left to be said. If you got even one small little morsel of value, as always, show love to the account, right? Show love to this account here on YouTube, over there on Instagram, right? Throw it some likes, throw it some comments, throw some engagement in there, and that just continues to help me do what I do by bringing this content, to you guys daily for free, right? That's what I'm just looking to continue. I'm showing love. If you reciprocate that love, then we continue to both feed off of each other in order to accomplish our goals, and that's what this community is about: closing the gap between where we are, where we want to be. Tiffany said, "Thank you, right? I appreciate you. We're all in this together." Everybody have a great rest of the day, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning for our last pre-market rundown of the week. Have a good one.